Billionaire's Forbidden Debt. Chapter 1. The Golden Key. The elevator doors slid open with a whisper, revealing a world Alina Silva had only seen in magazines. Marble floors that reflected the ceiling's recessed lighting, walls of glass showcasing the Parthenon in the distance, and the scent of expensive sandalwood and cold ambition. She gripped the strap of her canvas bag tighter. She was here to restore a Renaissance fresco in the foyer, not to gawk. But the silence of the penthouse was unnerving. "You're late." The voice was deep, vibrating through the cavernous room like a cello string snapped in anger. Alina spun around. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling window was a man who looked like he had been carved from the same marble as the floors. Nikos Varos. He wore a tuxedo, the tie undone, hanging loosely around a neck that spoke of brute strength masked by civility. His eyes were the color of the Aegean Sea during a storm, dark, turbulent, and dangerous. "I am precisely on time, Mr. Varos," Alina said, lifting her chin. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she refused to let a billionaire intimidate her. The service elevator was slow. Nikos walked toward her, his movements predatory. He stopped inches from her, close enough that she could smell the brandy on his breath and the heat radiating from his body. "The service elevator," he repeated, his lip curling in a mockery of a smile. "Fitting. My mother was specific. The hired help is to remain invisible." "Then perhaps you should stop starring," Alina fired back, her cheeks flushing. Nikos froze. No one spoke to him like that. Not the board members who feared him, and certainly not the socialites who threw themselves at his feet. He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. He saw the paint smudges on her jeans, the wild curl of her dark hair escaping her bun, and the fire in her honey-brown eyes. "You have spirit," Nikos murmured, his voice dropping an octave. "It's a dangerous quality for a woman in your position." "And what position is that?" "Beneath me," he whispered. The air between them crackled. It was an insult, yet it felt like a caress. For a terrifying moment, Alina wanted to slap him and kiss him. "I am here to save your fresco, Mr. Varos," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Not to be insulted by a man who thinks his bank account buys him manners." Nikos laughed, a dark, rich sound. "My bank account buys me everything, Despines Silva. Everything except, it seems, your silence." Chapter 2. The Matriarch's Decree. The heat of the afternoon sun was oppressive, but not nearly as stifling as the presence of Lady Helena Varos. She sat under a silk umbrella, sipping tea, while Alina worked on the delicate plaster of the wall nearby. "My son is fascinated by you," Helena said, not looking up from her cup. Her tone was light, but the underlying threat was heavy. Alina paused, her brush hovering over the wall. "I'm sure you're mistaken, madame. He barely tolerates me. Nikos has an appetite for things he shouldn't touch," Helena continued, her eyes snapping to Alina like a trap shutting. but he knows his duty. The Varro's bloodline has remained pure for centuries. We marry power. We marry influence. We do not marry the daughter of a bankrupt mechanic. Alina flinched. The sting was precise. Her father's debts were the reason she was working 3 jobs, the reason she was here in the lion's den. I have no designs on your son, Alina said coldly, dipping her brush into the gold leaf. I am here to work. See that you do. Because if you distract him, I will ensure no gallery in Europe ever hires you again. As Helena swept away, Alina felt a shadow fall over her. She looked up to see Nikos standing on the balcony above, watching. He had heard everything. Later that evening, as Alina packed her tools, the library doors opened. Nikos stood there, holding a glass of amber liquid. She is a monster, he said simply. She is your mother, Alina replied, not looking at him. And she is right. We are from different worlds, Nikos. Worlds can collide, he said, stepping into the room. He set the glass down and closed the distance between them. I am tired of my world, Alina. It is cold. It is empty. He reached out, his large hand cupping her jaw. His thumb traced the line of her lip, rough skin against soft. Alina stopped breathing. Don't, she whispered, a plea to herself as much as to him. Tell me to stop, Nikos challenged, his eyes searching hers. Tell me you don't feel this electricity. Tell me you don't dream of me the way I dream of you. I can't. Then don't. He crushed his mouth to hers. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was a starving man finding a feast. It was possession and desperation. Alina dropped her bag, her hands tangling in his thick hair, pulling him closer. For a moment, class, money, and mothers didn't exist. There was only the fire. Chapter 3, The Gala of Lies. Alina shouldn't be here. She knew it. But Nikos had insisted. He had sent a dress emerald green silk that clung to every curve and a note. Tonight, you are not the restorer. You are mine. She stood on the edge of the ballroom, clutching a glass of champagne, feeling like an imposter in a sea of diamonds. Ladies and gentlemen, a voice boomed over the speakers. Nikos stood on the stage, looking like a god of war in his tuxedo. Beside him stood a tall, blonde woman with ice blue eyes. Princess Theodora. I have an announcement, Nikos said, his face a mask of stone. He looked out into the crowd, his eyes locking onto Alina's. She saw pain there, deep, agonizing pain. I am pleased to announce the merger of the Varro's and Dimitriou families, he said, his voice void of emotion. Through my engagement to Princess Theodora, the room erupted in applause. Alina felt the blood drain from her face. The glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. The sound was lost in the cheering, but Nikos saw it. He saw her break. He had kissed her in the library. He had whispered promises in the dark. And now he had sold himself to the highest bidder. Alina turned and ran. She ran through the crowded hall, past the curious glances, out into the cool night air. Alina, wait. She didn't stop. She reached the bottom of the grand staircase just as Nikos caught her arm, spinning her around. Let me go, she screamed, tears streaming down her face. Go back to your princess. Go back to your money. It's not what you think, Nikos growled, shaking her slightly. My mother, she found out about your father's debt. The loan sharks. She threatened to call them in. They would have destroyed him, Alina. I did this to buy your safety. You sacrificed yourself for me. Alina stared at him, horror and love warring in her chest. You idiot. I never asked you to save me. Not like this. I could not let them hurt you, Nikos said, his voice breaking. I would burn my empire to the ground before I let a single hair on your head be harmed. But I am trapped, Alina. The merger. It is the only way to save the company and pay off your father's enemies. So that's it. Alina pulled her arm free, her voice quiet now. We are done. You marry her and I become, what? A memory. Nikos looked at her, his soul bared in his eyes. You will never be a memory. You are the only thing that is real. That isn't enough, she whispered. She turned her back on him. Goodbye, Nikos. She walked away into the darkness, leaving him standing alone in the light of the mansion he hated. Chapter 4. The Storm. Alina had fled Athens. She was working in a small pottery shop in a village by the sea, trying to forget the taste of Nikos's lips. A storm was raging outside, the Aegean lashing against the rocks. The lights flickered and died. Alina sighed, lighting a candle. A heavy pounding on the door made her jump. Alina, open this door. Her heart stopped. It couldn't be. She threw the door open. Nikos stood there, drenched to the bone, his tuxedo ruined, mud on his shoes. He looked wild, exhausted, and magnificent. Nikos, what are you doing here? The wedding is tomorrow. There is no wedding, he shouted over the wind, stepping inside and kicking the door shut. What? I called it off. I told Theodora everything. I told my mother to go to hell. He ran a hand through his wet hair. I liquidated my personal assets. I paid your father's debt myself. I lost the merger. The stock is plummeting. I might lose the company. Alina stared at him, stunned. You lost everything. No, Nikos said, walking toward her, the candlelight dancing in his eyes. I got rid of everything that didn't matter. I realized that a life without you is just a slow death in a golden cage. He fell to his knees in front of her, the proud billionaire, kneeling on the rough floor of a cottage. He took her paint-stained hands in his. I am not a king anymore, Alina. I am just a man who loves you more than his own life. Will you have me, even if I have nothing? Alina dropped to her knees to meet him. Tears blurred her vision, but her smile was radiant. You have me, Nikos, she whispered, cupping his wet face. And as long as we have that, we have everything. He kissed her then, and it tasted of rain and salt and freedom. Outside the storm raged, but inside the impossible had become possible. The walls of class and duty had crumbled, leaving only two hearts beating as one. The end.